Hello, my name is Jenna. I'm the content strategist at Stream, and today we will be talking about that buy versus build decision that a lot of product managers need to make with Dafna David, the CPO at Bridgify. Dafna, thanks for hopping on today.
Hi, Jenna. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. So before we dive into our main topic of conversation, could you give me a little overview of Bridgify, what it is, where was it founded, and who are your core customers?
Yeah. Yes, of course. Bridgify exists for 2 years. We're a B2B2C travel tech company based in Tel Aviv, Israel. We help travel retailers engage better with their travelers by providing them a white label holistic solution for both exploring the destination of the trip and planning a fully personalized trip plan.
Wonderful. Yeah, that seems like a really fun industry to be in the travel industry.
Yes, definitely. I love it.
So when you're kind of adding new features to Bridgify, how do you make those buy versus build decisions, whether to build a feature in-house or to use a third-party provider that can provide that component? What are some of the considerations that you think about?
So first of all, I will try to explain from my point of view. So I would ask myself, how close is this feature to what I call the spine of the product? You can ask yourself a different question, like how many OKRs will this feature help to serve? And if the ability is not at all crucial to the technology or the mission of your product team, it might be the first indicator of it not requiring the dedicated attention of your development team.
So could you give me an example of one time that you were adding a new functionality into your product and you kind of had to work through that decision?
Yes, sure. So that could be anything, right? From a weather widget to a big integration to a third party. So I will share an example from my work at Bridgify. So our core technology is developing the technology that cleans, manages, aggregates the data, creates the personalization, and matches it to the traveler. So our main work revolves around the recommendation personalization engines. But we also present the best price for the traveler. So for price comparison, for example, we considered using a third-party service because this technology is important for the user experience, but it is not the technological ability that differentiates us from competitors.
Wonderful. And I guess could you talk a little bit about like the price that discussion that kind of goes in? Is it often, more, does it make more sense to buy a component versus building it in-house, or is it just really up in the air depending on the different type of feature?
So it depends. There's a list of a lot of criteria you're going to have to consider, and sometimes in-house written features are easier to control and manage, and sometimes it's the opposite way. So I would consider considerations like how much time would it take to develop. That also goes into cost and budget considerations. Customization. Um, are your needs very detailed and specific, or are you flexible about the characterizations of the specific feature? Maintenance, does it save work or will it create more work? Does the team contain enough members to obtain the maintenance required for this ability? Um, Moreover, competition and time to market are very important to consider. Sometimes we would like in the roadmap in the future to develop disability in-house, but right now we have deadlines that we need to get to. And in order to do that, we need to add the ability without wasting the time of developing it in-house.
For sure. And what about scalability? Because I know some companies, a component may be really easy to build for a couple hundred users, but then once they start, hopefully gaining a lot more users into the thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands, I mean, I think that component is going to be a lot more difficult to scale and perform. So do you think about that kind of scalability aspect a little bit too in your own work?
Of course, scalability is the name of the game, right? So when aggregating to a third-party service or using a third-party component, sometimes it would only be a short-term solution. And this is why I mentioned before that time to market, competition, and deadlines are very important to consider. So even if you choose to use a third party to buy a service instead of creating it, you still have to see where in your roadmap do where in the roadmap you would invest the time of building it, obviously, because I believe that in the long term, in bigger companies that have enough human resources, enough budget, there is a tendency to build a lot of in-house tool in order to be more flexible, more in control. And so this is a matter of timing, I guess. Yeah, so definitely third parties could be short-term, non-scalable, and also, you know, you don't want to reach a vendor blockage of some sort. But it really depends. Sometimes it could be a long-term solution.
For sure. So maybe if you make that decision to choose a third-party vendor, how do you go about evaluating that tech partner? What are some tips you have to choose the right tech provider?
This is a really good question. First of all, I also come from a legal background, so I always read through and through all the contracts. But first of all, I feel like it wouldn't be the first thing that I check, but the chemistry with the other team you're working with is very important. How responsive they are for questions, for your needs. How flexible is the way the conversation goes? If I mention something that is very important to me as a client, would that be addressed or not? So this is something I can actually tell from the first conversation or first email. Another important thing is how the supplier describes their attention to my needs of scalability. And it's actually goes along the same conversation we had before, right? Some services do not pay attention to the long-term relationship with a company that that is their client. So I always want to be sure that I'm secured for the long term, that even if I choose to disconnect or switch this service for something I developed in-house, I always want to feel secure that my supplier feels for me and think about the future of my products as well.
For sure. Yeah, I love how you're kind of approaching it from a partnership versus just a vendor that you're going to just, buy something and then not really chat with them anymore. I love the partnership.
Definitely, vendors that I work with are definitely my partners.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for chatting about that. Do you have any more advice for product managers who are kind of in the thicket of the buy versus build decision right now?
Yes, sure. So, first of all, the answer to almost every question you face as a product manager lies in the core essence of your product. Always ask yourself, what is the main service or functions that you're aiming to provide, and how do you want to provide them? And also, scalability. You mentioned it before. It's maybe one of the most important factors to consider going forward. So sometimes it would be the best decision to spend a week or two or even a little more developing something that's going to have to be a part of your core functions for the future. So always think about it when you move from MVP to a full product, or just want to think forward of how you're going to serve more end users or more clients.
Awesome. That's great advice. And to wrap up, what's next for Bridgify? What's in the future for you guys?
So bigger team, of course. We plan to support tens of millions of travelers and help them plan their trip all around the world. And that's only in the next year. In a few years, I believe we would be the go-to service for added value and itinerary planning solutions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your tips about the buy versus build decision, and also all about Bridgify. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed being here.